Okay, here's a tutorial for the Exquisite Morph assignment. This is a hand-drawn animation where you're actually transforming or metamorphosizing or morphing a drawing in frame 1 gradually, fluidly, smoothly into a drawing in frame 24 by using both the straight ahead and pose to pose technique. Now for this you'll be using the provided tracing paper, 24 sheets, these little sheets of 4.5 by 6 inches. And you'll be using your 2 micron pens or some kind of black felt tip, some kind of black pen, black ink. I had you guys buy 2 of different thicknesses, so you have like a kind of variation in line weight to give you some range for your drawing. One thicker, one thinner, and then the Sharpie for filling things in or just for doing thicker lines. With the Sharpie you can kind of angle the tip and fill in things with different widths. So the first thing that you're going to be doing, and for those of you who weren't in class, I've left packs of paper with your name on it, at the professor's station in Nugent 559. If you can't find them there when you go into class, please let me know, but we can find a workaround to that, okay? So the first thing to do is to number your sheets on the bottom right hand corner from 1 all the way to 24. And that's bottom to top. The way that traditional animators have worked is that they draw on top of the previous drawing so that you can trace over the previous drawing. So frame 1 will be at the bottom. Frame 1 is the beginning of the animation, frame 24 is the end. And we're also orienting our paper horizontally so it's consistent with, it's similar to a standard, film aspect ratio or proportions. And finally, we're doing 24 frames, which is equivalent to 1 second worth of an animation in the conventions of traditional film, which is 24 frames per second or 24 FPS. Okay, so that's some of the reasons why we're doing this. Forgive me for drawing at a bit of an angle to you guys. So the first thing you do is you're going to make your drawing in frame 1. At some point you're going to remove the pages from either the staple or from the seam at the edge, so you can animate differently, but you can start off by just leaving it as is. So first we're going to draw a picture, like trying to create an interesting composition, but primarily trying to create 3 discernible, distinguishable objects. It's better if I think advisable to work abstractly and just maybe think of 3 interesting shapes. I would try to find a balance of black and white space, and you can fill things in however you want, with dots, dashes, hatches. You're just coloring things in with your Sharpie. So I'm going to do one thing down here. Try to create an interesting composition or fill up the space in some kind of interesting way. But the drawing can remain fairly simple. Maybe I'll do a circle over here, color it in. And if you haven't done this yet, take your time on the drawing. It's fine. You don't have to rush it as I am here. But it's really, the important thing is the animating process, not the detail or complexity of the original drawing. And then for the third thing, I'll just make a star. Great, simple, no biggie. But I can't bear to leave that quite so simple. And you can put additional material if you want some some additional things, a little landscape line in the background. It doesn't have to be exactly, but there should be 3 predominant shapes. Maybe I want a little bit of a hint of a horizon in the background. Fine, whatever. And so If you were doing this in class, you will have been given a drawing to trace for your frame 24. But if you weren't in class and you're doing it from home, you will just have to draw the frame 24 drawing. And one thing I want you to do for this one is to make it very different. So maybe I don't know, do something like this. And I'm still making things fairly abstract. By the way, depending on the tracing paper, you might be wary of the ink smearing before it dries. Different tracing paper handles the ink differently, so I haven't really tested this particular tracing paper out this time around, so we'll see how it works. And you can start out by drawing in graphite and then tracing over it. I recommend doing this in ink. It's easier to trace on top of an ink drawing when you're making your animation than on top of graphite. It'll make even though it's like higher stakes perhaps, it will make your experience, I think, more pleasant. And I will do a lightning bolt here. Some kind of lightning bolts. And then, I don't even know what to do. I'll just do something down here, a little snaky. And you can do imagery if you want. But what we want to focus on, the problem with imagery is that you tend to want to create some kind of narrative or make things logical. And this is not about logic. This is about some kind of formal transformation. I'm getting a little bit of a smear, so I have to be careful with my left-handedness. I have to rotate this a little bit. Try to move in to get the rotation a bit better. Okay. So now, how are you going to animate, morph, whatever you want to call it, between this image and this image? It seems really, there's no logical way to do it. It's a totally illogical experience. So the only way you can do it is to try to transform the shapes here to the shapes here. And that'll mean that the shapes will move, will move position and will kind of change, overall shape and coloring and various formal qualities. So the way that I recommend doing it is to start from, choose one shape in your beginning drawing, and I'll say the circle to start off with, and then choose one shape in your final drawing. Let's say you don't have to do the easiest, the most literal, obvious course. Let's have my circle in frame 1 evolve or morph into this thing in frame 24. Why not? But how to do it? So maybe you have a sense of how to do it. So I'm basically going to have to get this circle to slowly move down over to this place, and also to go from circular to flattened and more wiggly as I go. And there's two ways to approach this. One way, I can just begin by trying to guess, I have 24 frames to work with. What should it look like in this second frame? So let me just take you through the process a little. I'm going to try to line up these nicely. So let's say maybe in the second frame it's going to move a little bit and get a little wiggly. Excuse me. And for now I can just keep this in outline, but later I'll go back and color it in. You can see how I trace. And I'm just going to take one transformation all the way through to the end, and then go back and take another pass. And then I might make it travel a little bit further down and make it a little more wiggly, if I want to go the most direct route. But it's if this is the straight ahead technique, and while it's very easy and straightforward, I can look ahead also and say, okay, yeah, have to get there, and I have a lot of frames to do it. Maybe I am like this now. And it's gonna flatten out a bit. Okay. And you don't have to be too, you don't have to plan too much. Animation is a creative act. Just try something out, surprise yourself. But this straight ahead technique, while fairly straightforward, doesn't allow you to really easily predict, you know, what you should do in each frame. How long is it going to take me to get all the way down here? I'm probably going to arrive at my location way too early because I'm only in frame 6. So while I could go this route, what's probably going to happen is I'll end up basically being at my shape, my end shape relatively soon, and then what I'm going to do with my transition for the rest of the frames. So if I feel like I'm going to stumble into that kind of problem, it's time to try out the other technique, pose to pose. And so that means I can, and for this you're going to have to take apart your stack. And you're going to have to rely on your numbering. So here's my 24. Can you see that up there? No. Let's zoom out a bit. Here's my one. And if I wanted to find the middle kind of state between 1 and 24, I can go back into my stack and find the number of frame that's about in the middle. And in the middle between 1 and 24 is about 12. It's not the perfect middle, like 12 or 13 is fine. We don't have to be too exacting. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. I know this seems maybe like too technical, but this is the way that traditional animators worked. So now I have frame 12 on top of frame 1 and frame 24. Zooming back in, I realize I have a little bit of a shadow cast on this thing now. Okay, so now I can see my beginning point in this shape and my end point in this shape. And so now it's much easier to find where it should be right in the middle. At least the position, it should be about right in the middle position. So let's say it's going to be here, and what should the shape be? Somewhere, let's disregard that this upside down horseshoe is going to be in the same place and just go for it. Let's just say it's going to be like this. Like maybe that's the middle position. You just have to guess. Like if this was to morph or to transition into this, what would it look like here in the middle? Should it have a shadow already as that does? Maybe, or maybe it's just, you know, like what is the shading gonna look like? Maybe it's like halfway colored in or something. Why not? Let's try that. Again, it's not about logic. It's about just trying to approximate what you think. And so now the task that remains to you, once you've gotten that middle figure, you now have 3, you know, kind of moments in the life of this one transformation of this going to this. So it's a beginning. Now you have all the rest to fill in for this object. So now if you wanted to stick with this pose to pose technique, you could go in and maybe get the middle frame between 1 and 12, which would be 6 or 7. And I could go in here. I've already filled in a bunch at the beginning. So, but I'll still do this. I'm going to put the 7, which is blank, on top, because I'm going to be drawing on the 7. And to zoom in again, I hope this isn't getting too... Okay, So now I'm going to be doing the middle position between this and this. So why don't we call it like, whatever, like this. Okay. And then we'll probably have it mostly colored in because it starts off all black in frame 1, and so let's kind of do this. We'll have some white appearing. Okay. And so you're just going to be doing that the whole way through for this one object. So every frame should have some, should have some drawing in it relating to this transformation. Every frame should have all, the kind of transition of all these 3 objects accounted for. And you're going to have to like reorder stuff as you go. And after you get that first transition done, you're going to go. So I would recommend doing one transition all the way through. Take this transition from here to here through all the frames, all 24 frames, and then start on the next transition. Maybe for the next transition, I'm going to do. Maybe this will turn into this. And maybe now that you feel secure in the process, you can do something that's like more inventive. You don't necessarily have to go the most direct path between point A and point B. You can be way more circuitous in that. You could kind of take the star, turn it into an amoeba, take it over there, then bring it back over to this position by 24. You could do it totally straight ahead. It's okay to not make the transition totally smooth and logical. Just do your best to find, different routes for these 3 different transformations, if that makes sense. And as I go, I think I'll just do a little bit on the way with this transformation, pretending like I've already finished the first one. And let's see if I can take it on an interesting circuitous route. And things are going to get a little wonky on the way no matter what you do. But it's just being really, like, trusting in this process, really taking your time and doing and being careful about it. Not every drawing has to be like an hour of effort. I doubt anyone's going to fall into that kind of trap. These frames are going to be playing fast enough that the eye isn't going to be able to focus for too well on a single drawing. But that doesn't mean that you should be totally sloppy and rush it either. So maybe I might just do this straight ahead. Why not? I'm going to make it just a little different. Like, how is this going to move? Maybe the arms of the star are going to drag behind a little bit, or maybe flex, and maybe I'll try to keep the formation of the star mostly intact for a little while. I do want to actually do something with these little shine elements, and maybe they'll disappear in a few frames, but I don't want anything to just pop out of existence right away. Oh shoot, don't tear the page. It's okay if you tear the page. I should have left you guys some spare pages. Crap, I don't think I left any spare pages in the room. If you mess up a page or two, don't sweat it. Like, I'm probably going to mess this up right here. The star illusion will be broken. Okay, that didn't mess up too bad. Like, where am I even going? I forget. I'll have to check back in to see what I'm doing. Getting it eventually up to this lightning bolt. Okay, but I have a lot of frames to still work with here. So I'm just going to keep going. And at this point, you know, if you have a sense of the process, I'm not going to spend this tutorial working through everything, but I will post my completed version of this project when I'm done. And maybe I want the next one not to be quite as fluid, but to be more of a jump. Why don't we have it jump up here and be more, let's say it's going to kind of like be implying this high velocity, so it's going to be, so the star part will be flopping, or the arms of the star will be flopping backwards. I think I lost an arm of the star, but that's okay. Why don't I do this to imply that there's some continuity? It's amazing, like, what, you know, if you attend enough to giving the sort of general feel of the object, how much as this transitions, like, the eye will believe that this is the same form, even though it's like very different in shape, just because it's in a similar position. Just play. Just keep track of what you're doing. Don't make anything just disappear for no reason. And you should be in good shape. Okay, so now it's going to collide with this. I'll just have it kind of pass behind and go around here. You know, it's not going on the most direct route to its final position, and that's all right. And at this point I can maybe I'll let the star shine kind of fade out. We don't need to pay attention to that the whole way through. The horizon line, I don't really feel like dealing with that much longer. And now I'm going to make the star, maybe I'll make the star do something really dramatic now. It's passing behind this cloud. Why don't we make it kind of do this crazy movement, like it turns into a comet here. And I'll just, you know, do gradual changes and then do a sudden change. It'll be interesting to see how that translates in the final animation. Now this form is my other transition, and it's going to be mostly filled in with black when I go back through. So now I'm going to take this onto the next phase. Now it's going to get back to a more gradual transition, I think, after that sudden burst. There's still going to be the outline, I think. But maybe the interior is... Okay, I'll just keep on with that. I'm only at frame 7. So basically, I probably should be doing much more gradual changes at this point. Let's do a gradual. Even more gradual would probably be better. And you'll begin to appreciate how much work is invested in a second of animation in this traditional technique. Divide and conquer is the name of the game in this. I think this form that I'm avoiding is going to have passed by, but who knows at this point. One thing at a time. Why don't I start to get pointed again? Let's see what happens if I start to become faceted like a star again. I'm going to end up being fairly faceted with this creature. I'm eventually trying to get up there. Like in this case, I'm trying to get up there into that position. And I'm just going to take it to frame 12 and then end the tutorial. I don't want to arrive there so quickly, but I could arrive there and then just kind of slow things down. And now at frame 12, this is why I should have resolved this entire transition before bothering with the second one. But that's okay. If I had drawn all the frames for this first transition, it would have been a little easier to figure out what's going to happen with the second one. Okay, so that's my first through 12 frames. I'm not going to try to make it a flip book, but I'll show you the end result when I'm done, okay? So that's the start, and that's basically a process. It's going to take you some hours, most likely, and as it should. And so you have 2 weeks to do this. Good luck.